Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Yellow Room Podcast. I'm Nika Hansen, your host, and I want you all to be great. The Yellow Room is all about empowering you to unleash your full potential in every single aspect of your life. And I hope that you've received just that up until this point. If you consider yourself a part of this great Yellow Room community, be sure to do me a few favors. First, subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Secondly, if you enjoy any of the episodes that I put out or today's episode, help me to extend my reach by sharing it with a friend or two. Again, thank you for tuning in. Hello. Welcome back to the final episode of the Love series. Today, we will be talking about how to sustain a marriage, have a healthy, life-giving marriage. I hope that you all have thoroughly enjoyed this Love series, and I hope that you have valuable takeaways to apply to whatever season you are in your life and just strengthen your relationships all around. Today's episode features Emmanuela Rodenberg. She is of the Healthy Relationships Project, an international speaker, author, and certified dating and relationship expert. She is the proud author of the best-selling book, How to Attract a Godly Husband, whose mission is to help singles know themselves, identify the right mate, and create healthy, lasting relationships. Emmanuela's mission is to educate singles on healthy dating practices that ultimately lead to healthy relationships and marriages. She has been featured on ABC, CBS, Fox, Sheen Magazine, and Dominion TV. Her services include relationship education workshops, informative seminars, and keynote presentations. I hope that you all enjoy today's episode. Hello, Yellow Room family. Welcome back to another episode of the Love series. Today's topic is I'm married, now what? Me and our special guest, her name is Emmanuela Rodenberg. She is a relationship coach. We want to see marriages stay together. It's not enough just to show up on your wedding day, but to be prepared to have your marriage be sustaining thereafter. So we wanted to kind of dive into some topics around sustaining marriage. I know as a newlywed, I'm interested in the topic as well. Before we get into the topics today to be discussed, I kind of wanted Emmanuela to introduce herself, tell you all a little more about who she is, what she does, and her background and expertise.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much, Nika, for inviting me to be a part of the conversation. I'm honored that you chose me for such an important topic that is really close and dear to my heart. I love relationships. Anything about relationships get me excited because I just think it's the area of our lives that is the foundation for everything else that we do, but it doesn't get as much attention as it should. So just a little bit about me. I'm Emmanuela Rodenberg. I am a healthy relationship coach because I want to help people have healthy, thriving relationships. It's not enough for me just for you to be in a relationship or just to be married, but I want you to be happy, thriving, and living your best life in your relationship. I am an international speaker, author. I've written a book, bestseller book, How to Attract a Godly Husband, really teaching women what are the things that you need to be doing to attract the kind of mate that you are desiring. I am married, going on 11 years, to my best friend. We've been together 13 years. We have two beautiful, amazing daughters that are the apple of my eyes. And I am just excited about marriage and relationships. I've been blessed to have a great husband, a great family. And I just want to share with others the principles that I've used and God has allowed me to to use to have the relationship that I have and help others have the same or better.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of today's conversation, and kudos to you for being married for 11 years and on having 2 beautiful children together. I've seen your daughters. They're absolutely pretty.
Thank you.
But yeah, so what's been some of the things that has kept you and your husband's relationship and friendship? Because I've discussed in previous episodes that at the core of a healthy marriage and relationship, you have to be one another's friend. And I kind of warn people that if they know that there's all of us are flawed, but I know that some people struggle with friendships more than others. So I kind of caution people that if they know that they have some struggles, to try to work through them as best as possible before being committed to someone else, because friendship can take your marriage or relationship a long way. So I'm happy to hear you say that your husband is your best friend. How did you all establish? I'm sure you all were friends in the dating phase before you all got married, but how have you all strengthened your friendship in your marriage?
Well, that's a great question. And I tell people all the time, when it's different. I think people go in marriage with the same mindset that they do when they are just casual dating. And I always say the way you choose a husband is very different than how you choose a casual boyfriend. And so there are certain characteristic traits that you want to look for in a husband for the person you're going to be spending the rest of your life with. I was fortunate that my husband and I were friends for a while before we started dating. And it's funny, I tease him all the time. I said, you are not even my type. But he won my heart by his character, the man that he is, and the man, how he just carried himself. He was a man of character, of integrity. Things that people do, that's so boring. But when you're looking for a life partner, those things are grand. And I love the topic, I'm married now, what? I tell people all the time, you have to like is such a word that we focus on love a lot, and we seldom talk about the likability factor, because you have to like the person that you're with. And that's how friendships are formed, because when you first meet someone, you have to like them. And when you like someone, you base them on their integrity. I like how they operate. I like how they speak. I like how they treat me. I like how I feel when I'm around them. They make me feel comfortable. How do you feel when you're around that person? Do you like that person? Because you can love someone and not like them.
Amen to that.
And you find a lot of people in relationships, they love him, but they can't stand him as an individual, as a person. If I wasn't married to you, I wouldn't even be around you.
Right.
So that likability factor is very important, because when you like someone, it speaks volume. It speaks to their character. So you really want to focus on. So I love my husband. We're best friends because I like him as an individual. So even if we're not married, I could see him as someone that I would trust and build a friendship with. He's kind, all those things that I admire in a person. So I like spending time with him, and I respect who he is as an individual. And when you respect someone, then you can have a close friendship with them.
Yes, amen to all of that. And if you
I'm fine to your question. I'm like,
you're having a hard time kind of wrapping your head around like versus love, just think about that family member. It could be a brother or sister, right? Yes, you love them, your siblings, but do you like them? That's what we're talking about. There's a difference in like and love. Love, yes, they're your sibling. You all have the same parents, whatever. You grew up in the same household, all of that good stuff. But in your leisure time, do you reach out to hang out with that person, right? If you don't like them, then you're probably less likely to hang out with them, right? You're only forced to be around.
Absolutely.
Say family gatherings or what when you need to be, but you don't do it. You don't go out of your way to hang out with that sibling. So that's the example.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for making that clear.
Yeah, because I know I've heard people say that you can't what is the saying? You can't love someone that you don't like, and I'm like, that is false, because
you can love them.
I love like all of my siblings, but I know that there are some family members, I love them dearly, but I just can't be around them for whatever reason.
Exactly.
But I'm just not going to hang out with you when I don't have to. I'll love you from afar.
Exactly.
I have to choose who I hang out with wisely.
Absolutely. And sadly, that happened in marriages as well, because when we're in that infatuation phase, in which a lot of people make lifelong decisions, because they're in love, they have that feeling, which cannot sustain a marriage, but they fall in love and that feeling, and then when they look back at that person, when they really start to discover who that person is, like, that's why a lot of marriages break up, because you don't really like the person. So you don't want to spend time with them. You don't want to be kind. You don't want to be compassionate, because all those things come when you really like and care about a person.
Right. Agreed. Now, for the married people who maybe they've been married for a little while, some longer than others, or maybe people who are just recently married, but they're feeling like they're kind of losing that infatuation stage, the honeymoon phase. What tips do you have for married couples to keep things like spicy and just avoiding going down the mundane, boring? All of the bad stuff you don't want to happen in a marriage.
Well, I get that a lot. And I always tell people, call me naive, but I truly believe your relationship is going to be, you have to design your relationship. Great relationships don't just happen. They are created every day by the everyday things that you do daily. And I tell people all the time, marriage is like a plant. That's the example I give people. You plant, you have to look at it every day. If there are any weeds in it, you got to pull it out. You got to water it. You got to nurture it, make sure you're getting the sunlight. If you neglect that plant for a few days, it's going to have an impact on that plant. So it's the same thing goes in your marriage. Because sometimes you think you can ignore and just kind of let it go because we're busy, focusing on other things, our careers, or even the children and the house and all these things, and you neglect your spouse. And what happens is, weeds start to grow in that marriage. And you might not notice them at first because they're tiny little buds growing in the dirt. And sometimes you won't even notice them until they spring up. You're like, where does this weed come from? So marriage is like a daily, what are you doing daily to pour into your marriage? Are you checking in with your spouse daily? In marriage, you have to have marriage goals. I think before people get married, they have to really sit down and talk about, what do we want this marriage to represent? What is our vision for this marriage? What is the mission of this marriage? Because we do that for other areas of our lives, but we don't do it in our marriages. And that's why marriages are struggling. We just kind of let them float and just kind of see where they go without any steering it in the direction that you want it to go. So marriage is, you have to pour into it daily, check in with your spouse. How are you doing? Like, I have conversations with my husband all the time where I would say, honey, how's your marriage? I would ask him, how's your marriage? What are the things that's going really well in our marriage? What are some things that I can do to make the marriage better? What are some things that we need to work on? So you're constantly checking into the marriage, because I say, it's like the difference when you buy a car versus when you lease a car. When you buy a car, that's your car. You need to make sure that you're taking care of it, because you're stuck with it for life. You're committed to it. So you want to take care of it. You want to nurture it. Like, this is the person that I am going to spend the rest of my life with. So what are you doing daily to make sure that you're providing the maintenance that it needs to make sure it's flourishing, it's thriving? So it's really paying attention to your partner and making sure that their needs and your needs are being met within the marriage.
I love the whole plant analogy, because I suck at planting. And it's because I'll get excited every single spring. I go to Lowe's and get all of these pretty flowers. I put them in the ground, and I just think that they're going to stay pretty just because I call it speaking life into them. On my way out the door, I'll say little nice things and think that they're just going to keep sprouting and be pretty. But sometimes I'm too lazy to actually water them every day. And what happens is, within a month, they're all brown and ugly, and I'm mad at myself. So You have to pay attention and water them daily, especially when it starts to get really, really hot outside. But I totally agree with you. And I think too, I hear people with children oftentimes say that, they used to do these things, like they used to check in, they used to have date nights, they used to have marriage meetings. I hear a lot of people say that they actually set aside time to kind of check in with their spouse and see how things are going. But I hear so many people say that, once you have children, all of that changes. And I have a child on the way, but me and my husband.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Me and my husband are always like, we don't want that to be like, and call me naive, call us naive if you want, but we're always like, we're thinking of ways now, planning out how we're going to still keep the excitement between us, right? So we're like, okay, we're gonna at least have 2 date nights per month, or date weekends or whatever. Both of our parents are retired. They're ready to babysit. They keep saying that. So we'll put them to, and then we're also thinking of like how we're going to give each other time. So if that means I have one night a week to myself where he has the baby and I do what I want and then he does what he wants. Like, we're trying to think of ways so that the baby just doesn't come and then it's like we forget who we are when it was us first, right? So I think a lot of people, they have children and then I call it like they start to idolize them, and there's nothing wrong with your children being, the center of your world. But at the end of the day, you still have to pour into your partner as you did before the children came along. So.
Absolutely. You said a lot. You're very wise for a newlywed. Look at you. I'm so proud.
No, I learned through people around me, like people, family, friends. I see and I hear comments like, oh, just wait till y'all have children. Marriage ain't gonna be the same. It's gonna get this. It's gonna be that. And I'm just like, I don't want that to be my reality. So me and my husband started talking about that way before we found out we had a child on the way. So I'm like, we need to be on the same page. And I know things are going to change because the baby is going to just be so precious to us. When he gets there, we're really trying to be intentional about still having time to ourselves, to pour into one another and just spend quality time. And then giving the grandparents something to do because, they get bored.
Absolutely. You said so many things that I want to touch on. You said a key word at the end, intentional. Relationships you have to be very intentional about the relationships that you are creating. And kudos to you and your husband to really already start thinking about the kind of relationship you want to have. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do. They just kind of leave it to chance and let's kind of see what happens. But you're taking control of your marriage and of your relationship and already talking about how do we want this to work out. So you guys already created that vision and the mission for your marriage already from the get-go, which is awesome. But I will tell you, when those babies do get here, oh my God, there's a part of your heart that you didn't even know existed. And no one can explain it to you. I can't tell you. I can tell you all day, but there's a part of you, especially as a mom, there's a level of love you didn't know you can love so deep. Oh my God, it leaves you wide open. Yeah. Which is because children are a gift from God and they are precious and you're going to love that baby. But you said it as well, and I know that happened to me, and I was very intentional because God designed marriage. And even when God wrote, God said, husband, the wife and the husband relationship come before the children. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, come before anything else. And I was okay with it until I had my baby. I was like, okay, I love my husband. He comes above everything else. But when I had that baby, I was like, oh my God, how does God really expect me to love my spouse more than I love this baby? It's impossible, Jesus. Lord, I want to please you, but I just don't think it's possible. But But the more I became a parent, and the more I studied, because I study relationships, I study family dynamics, because I'm really curious, because I want to know what works, what makes great marriages, and why do marriages fail. So I'm a student of marriages and healthy relationships. But what I discovered is that the reason God had things the way that he does, and I read this great book. I don't remember the title, but I remember the one thing out of the book, and it said, the greatest gift you can give to your children is for them to see you have a healthy marriage.
Wow.
That's the best gift you can give to your children. And sometimes we're so busy trying to give our kids all the other things, our attention, our toys and all that things, that we neglect the biggest gift that we can give them, because they are forming their lives, their future, based on what they see in that home.
Right.
So that's the best gift that you can give them, to show them what a healthy marriage looks like, how a healthy family dynamic operates, how we respect one another, how we work together as a team, how Daddy and I take time for each other so that we can be best and happy to serve you guys. Because if you're not happy, if your husband's not happy, eventually it trickles down to the children, because you can't give what you do not have. So you really have to have a plan that, hey, listen, we love those babies, but at the end of the day, you have to remember those children are going to grow up, have their own families, and you're going to be left with that husband. So if you have not poured into him, if you have not nurtured your relationship, if you have nothing in common, because the whole time you were so focused on that child, that was your whole world. And I think that's why a lot of parents, when their children graduate or go off to college, they lose their sense of identity. They don't know who they are outside of that child. And their marriage suffers. A lot of people get divorced after their children leave home, because they have nothing in common, because that child was holding them together. So you have to keep your marriage strong and connect with your husband, and let the children see you do it, because that is the greatest gift that you can give them.
I'll be right back after this message. Today's episode was brought to you by Anchor, my podcast host. I chose Anchor to host my podcast for several reasons. Number one, it's free. 2, the convenience. They have several creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on many different platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can make money from podcasting. Yes, you can make money with no minimum listenership. If you're interested in starting a podcast today, everything you need to know, you can learn at anchor.fm to get started. Thank you. I love that. I wrote that down. Like, as you were saying it, I'm like, I have to remind myself of this. This is going to be my daily affirmation. Once he gets
You do. Because that husband of yours, that's who your children are going to go off, and that's who's going to be your life partner.
Yeah, that's and even thinking about like children who witness their parents go through divorce, they have a lot of like trauma from seeing that. It just
absolutely
it ruins family dynamics a lot.
And they don't know how to form their families.
Yeah, and it affects how they choose to date, the partners they choose. And even I hear a lot of, well, I wouldn't even call them friends, but I hear people say often that they don't aspire to be married because they saw their parents go through a nasty divorce. And it's just like, wow, like they can't even, because of what they've witnessed, they can't even imagine themselves being in a healthy marriage. So like you said, the family dynamic really has a lot of influence on how the children themselves in relationships. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, with studying marriages, what are some of the common hardships, or marriage, relationship, either or? What are some of the common hardships and struggles that you've seen, and what advice would you give for people to get through them?
Well, I think the number one thing is really, and it's really hard when I see couples who are already missed that crucial step from the beginning. I think the first step is making sure you're aligned with the right person, that you married the right person.
Right.
Because I've seen a lot of people who are in marriages, and when I look at them and I talk with them and I coach them, if I could go back and tell them, I would have told you guys should have never gotten married, honestly. But it's hard. It's really hard because we put so little effort, because people are like, okay, I'm married, now what? People don't think about the what. Okay, the after, the I do, the after the wedding, the nice dress, the big party. Now what? What does this marriage look like? So the hardships and the struggles that I see is people coming into marriages really having a false idea or just fantasy what marriage is. Like they don't think past the honeymoon.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't really thought about, our values together. What does our marriage represent? What are we going to do in this marriage? What are some things that are important to us? What do we want to achieve in this marriage? And who are we in this marriage? Who are we outside of this marriage? A lot of questions that don't get answered before marriage. And now you have people who have said I do to a lifetime together and have no idea what they said I do to. So now they're trying to navigate and fix a lot of mistakes and fix a lot of things that they could have been really rectified from the very beginning. Self-identity, how we're going to raise our children, where we're going to live, religion, our value system. So you have a lot of people who are married who are not ready to be married because they don't really understand what it means to sacrifice, to put in the person needs before yourself. To really, because I tell people all the time, marriage has nothing to do with love. We overcomplicate. I love you. Okay, love is great, but it's a commitment that's going to keep your marriage. The commitment that you made to this person. You said to death do us part. So you're saying the only way you're going to separate from this person is somebody has to die.
Right.
So when you think about this commitment that you're making, it really kind of forces you to think about, what does that really mean? And are we on this journey together? Are we going even the same direction? So the hardship is in the communication. How do we communicate? Do you know what my needs are? And do you put me above, everything else? And do you make sure that I'm cared for, that I'm nurtured? And wives, are we respecting our husband? Are we allowing them to lead us? And are we good followers? Are we helpmates? It's so many different things that I see that can ruin a marriage. And it's normally not the big things. It's really the little small things, learning to speak up and speak how you, and talk about how you feel, but still doing it in a respectable manner. One of the best books someone gave us as a wedding present, and I love that book. It's called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Chapman. Oh, I love that book. Someone gave us, that was one of the best wedding gifts. It really talks about how the love language, how your partner wants to be loved. Because if you don't know your partner's love language, you end up loving them in your love language. Mm-hmm. But especially men and women, our love languages can be very different. So you can be doing all the right things in your eyes because that's how I would want to be treated. That's how I would want someone to show me love. But if that's not your partner's love language, you doing all these things, but they could care less, honestly.
Right.
Because you're not speaking their language. So you really have to know, what is it that your partner really needs from you? What are their needs? What's important to them? And find a way to really serve them and to fill their cup in a way that makes them feel loved.
Yes. On almost every single episode of this series, I believe love languages have come up. So if you listen to all of them, then I hope that it's starting to stick now, that understanding them, what they are and what your partners are, is very, very important, because like Emmanuela just said, you can be doing all the right things, but at the same time, the wrong things to kind of please your partner. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a big one. Make sure you're giving your partner what they need.
Right.
And not what you need.
And then what about for people who are married and they're questioning whether their marriage is worth saving? So this is after maybe an affair, maybe there's broken trust when it comes to finances. Like, I'm sure you've seen where this could play out, where someone would question whether or not if it's worth saving their marriage and being with this person.
Well, I think the Bible said what God has joined together, let no man separate. And that includes ourselves, and the people within the marriage. So I think that goes back to what I said earlier, because I think people make lifelong decisions based on a feeling or an emotion. And I think when you really think about, before you say, I do, this is a person that I'm going to spend my life with, you say for better or for worse, so all these things, there's a reason why you repeat those vows. And right. I think we need to get in the habit of really studying those vows and seeing what they really mean before you say, I do. Because I tell people all the time, marriage is a legal binding document. That's why you have to sign. Mm-hmm. It's a contract. So you're going into a contract and you haven't really read the terms. So you have no idea what you're agreeing to forever to. So when things get tough, because you haven't studied, because you haven't sat down and talked to your spouse about, what if this happened in the relationship? What is the strategy for that? How are we going to resolve conflict? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to make sure we protect our marriage from getting to a point where we don't want this marriage anymore? How do we handle, if you infidelity? How do we handle broken trust? Because those issues, no one ever planned for them, but they happen every day. There's a reason why the divorce rate is so high. So we have to get in the habit of having daily conversations in our marriages, checking in. And if you do find yourself in a space, because at the end of the day, we all are responsible for ourselves. Because no matter, I can be the best wife, my husband can try to be the best husband that he can possibly be. But, there are areas that I'm going to fall short in. So when those things come up, do you value yourself and your spouse and what you've built together, to ask yourself, is it worth saving? And I think one of the things that you can really, when you're asking yourself, is a relationship worth saving? You really have to ask yourself, you have to look, why did this happen? What caused it? What part did I play in it? Because a lot of time when our spouse have an affair or trust is broken, we're quick to, look at the other person and see all this. We can point the finger, this is their fault, this is we can, a lot of excuses. But it's really hard to look at yourself in the marriage. I'll never forget, a mentor of mine told me, she said, Emmanuela, if you remember in your marriage, or to always say, the problem in my marriage is me. If I'm saying the problem in my marriage is me, and my husband is saying the problem in our marriage is me, that means we're constantly evaluating ourselves. So I'm constantly, if I think I'm the problem in the marriage, I'm constantly, what can I do better? But it has to be both sides. Both partners have to be doing it. That means we're always looking for ways to improve ourselves and improve our marriage. So you have to look at, if trust was broken, why, what happened? And I tell people, it could be the simplest thing. I can say, unless I'm joking or just a joke or something, I don't lie to my husband. I just don't. Because I just firmly believe once you tell a lie, then you've opened a window for lie to enter the marriage. Mm-hmm. And once you've opened, now you've invited lie into your marriage. Now you've invited deceit into your marriage. Because we invite things into our marriages. And when they come in, now they start to create a destruction and, destroy things. Oh, where did this come from? But you invited it at some point in your marriage. You have to go back and say, at what point did I introduce this into my marriage? Like right. Disrespect. If you guys talk about, hey, no matter how upset we get, we still need to respect one another. So you will not call me out of my name. We will not call each other names. If you can't, you just need to take a time out. When you get to that level where you feel like you need to say something because I tell people, words are powerful. Once you say something, you can never take it back.
Right.
No amount of apology, no amount of I'm sorry. So we have to be, especially women, I tell women all the time, you really have to, that tongue that God gave us, we really have to have that under control, because we can make or break our spouses with our mouth, with our words. And even for me, when I first got married, I literally had to learn to bite my tongue. Literally, I used to bite my tongue.
Look, I'm still learning.
Because I've always known. You do. Because I don't know, that always stuck with me. Your words are powerful. And once they come out, you can never, ever take it back. 10 years from now, that person will remember what you said to them. So if you know you can't take it back, so you have to be very careful and run those words through several filters before they come out. So you have to say, okay, how is this going to impact my spouse? What damage is this going to do? And can I ever repair that damage? So, and you have to answer those questions and know that you cannot. So you have to be very careful in the things that you say, because you can destroy, you can spend a year building your marriage, and with one word, you can really destroy it. So you have to go back and say, how did I introduce cursing into my marriage? How did I introduce disrespect into my marriage? How did broken trust into my marriage? So you have to be very intentional about creating the kind of marriage that you want. And when you are thinking along those lines, so when things come up, I think they're easily repairable. You can talk things so you can repair, because you haven't done damage that you cannot go back and fix. I hope that answered your question. I know I gave a lot of.
Oh no,
Just summing up, how.
It makes perfect sense. It makes a lot of sense. Like you said, we invite things into our marriage. They just don't, randomly appear.
They don't just show up.
Right. And so little by little, there were additions. And then I really like that you said how your mentor told you that if you take on their perspective of I'm the problem in my marriage, and your spouse has that same perspective, then you'll constantly be working on you and not always blaming the other person. I really,
absolutely,
really, really, really like that. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
You are so welcome. Yeah, I'm so glad. I hope I gave the listeners some information that they can really use, because marriage is important. I think I tell people all the time, after making Jesus Lord, the person you choose to spend your life with is the most important decision you will ever make. And it should not be taken lightly. And once you make that decision, you have to protect it with all that you have. That is your partner for life. You have to protect that marriage, because so much is riding on the line of you're having a strong marriage. Your
right.
family, your generations, your legacy, everything you're building is based on that foundation that you build within your marriage. So you find yourself in a marriage where you are struggling. You have to go back to remember why you fell in love. Why did you choose this person in the first place? Sometimes you have to remind yourself, because when we get to start living life, we forget. And that's why it's so important to stay in constant communication, connecting with your spouse, and reminiscing on talking about why we fell in love. Hey, do you remember when we first got married, when we were dating, what I love about you, and remind that person of all those things. So you can kind of keep that flame. That's how you keep the romance going. It's constantly looking at pictures, talking about your vision. Honey, I can't wait. When we retire, we're planning, we're growing together. Because I think that I also see in marriages, it's like one spouse is growing and the other one stays stagnant. So they're growing, they're doing all this exciting, and they're leaving their spouse behind. So you always have to make sure that you are growing with your spouse. You guys are growing together.
Right. Absolutely. Look, you said a lot. You said a lot, and I'm over here trying to take notes for myself. But yes to all of that.
Yeah.
So with wrapping things up, if you can share how our listeners today can get connected with you on social media and about the services you offer.
Well, my social media platform is Dear Emmanuela. So dearemmanuela.com is my website. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I do a lot of seminars and workshops to really educate people on how to build healthy relationships, how to identify toxic relationships. I just started this program called the Healthy Relationships Project. It's really working with colleges and students and even nonprofit organizations, teaching people how to recognize healthy versus unhealthy relationships, the signs of a healthy relationship versus signs of toxic relationships, how to choose, just self-assessment, self-identity, things that we really need to focus on before we even get into relationships. Because like I said earlier, I think a lot of the problems could be resolved if we would just take some time beforehand before we get into serious committed relationships. So all my social media platforms are at Dear Emmanuela. So you can reach me there and send me a message. I do complimentary consultations to see if we're a good fit, because I know not everyone's a good fit for me because my teachings are primarily biblical based. So I teach from the foundation of the Bible.
Amen to that.
So, yeah, that's what
that is the best way. Jesus at the center.
Yes, amen. I don't know how people do marriage without Jesus. You need Jesus.
Right.
And you married long enough, you'll realize how much you need Jesus.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise and your tips on today's episode. I truly appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners appreciate it as well. Listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please do Emmanuela and I both a favor by sharing it on your social media platforms with friends, family members, because I think that all of us can agree that we don't want to see the divorce rates keep climbing, and we want people to stay together and for the family dynamic not to be ruined, affecting children and other areas of our lives. So please do us a favor, leave a rating, review. If you agree with what was said, give us some feedback. And if you don't, I'm always open to feedback as well. We can start a conversation. But again, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Love Series. And I hope that you'll consider coming back for the remaining. Have a great day. Have a blessed one. And again, thanks for tuning in. I'll be right back after this message. Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. If you are new here, please consider subscribing on whatever platform you're listening in on today. Leave me a rating, leave me a review, comment, whatever you feel that you want to do. If you already consider yourself a part of the Yellow Room family, please consider making a small monthly donation to sustain and contribute to my growing platform. No amount is too small. Donations can be made at anchor.fm/theyellowroom/support. If you are unable to, I still love you just the same. You can still support me by listening, sharing, and providing feedback. I thank you all so much, and I appreciate your continued listenership. Thank you.